fucking name!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Chocolate Sayin, Paul Hall, Neil, Flatsoid, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Get it on.
Hello. Morning.
Good morning, all of you. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon? Hey, Arwin, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Nope.
No, Arwen is not the gym.
It is dire, man.
Hello. No, geometric considerations, that is it. And they often overlook that. They just take the geometric considerations for granted and basically dislocate that routine from, solid footing. I recognize this because it was discussed this morning on the Flat Earth arena over at Miggy's. Neil was in there too. And this guy was doing that like nobody else.
Oh, you were there, when you heard him saying
Yeah.
that you take a picture and then you go up higher and you could take another picture and then measure it, the time.
Shout out to Trade Door for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Any evidence of axial rotation?
Any evidence of reference frames?
In the model.
You and your reference frames have been ruined. End quote, Simandan.
Thanks,
No
Simon.
beliefs in them, though. The ones in his model, that is.
Anyone on the Flat Earth side got any reference frames?
No, but they have infinite.
They need two for Coriolis effect for Earth to turn underneath stuff not attached. Shame we don't see that effect. Earth's not turning under anything. We're not seeing anything drift away from us.
What
evidence?
kind of frame do I have to refer to specifically?
You turning underneath stuff not attached. If it was happening, we'd see stuff drift away. We don't, because it isn't. Earth isn't turning. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What is the sun?
Question, I don't know.
Well, if we find out what it is, maybe we can get a distance.
It just seems like a light apparition to me.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope, it's a reification fallacy.
You can't have scientific evidence of a concept.
Right. And gravity to them is a force, even though it's not actually a force, which is very confusing to them.
You covered it in your first answer. Excellent answer. It's a reification fallacy. Misplacing a concrete nature or force in this example for something which is conceptual. Pseudo-Riemannian force-based time bending. Yeah, not real. Merely reified into existence by idiots, even though their priests tell them it's not a force. Anyway, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? Talking of the priesthood.
Yeah. I roughly directly asked that question on Natural News yesterday, but the comment was deleted, of course.
Yeah, you did went through it, though. It's nice that you read it, because your sentiment was spot on about science.
Yeah, well, I didn't like that comment, I think.
Yeah, well, you took them up to the roots, so.
I'm automatically banned from making comments in most places. So just to see, I got used to this years ago, but you'd make a comment on some innocuous video, you go back and it had gone. You'd be like, okay, so basically my account isn't allowed to make comments. You'll go into certain videos. So for instance, there's a guy called That Umbrella Guy, or The Umbrella Guy. He covers the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial at the moment, and I'm quite interested in it. So part of it took place in Britain, and I'm allowed to comment there. But then yesterday he put out that he's subcategorized as sort of, I think he said, left-wing conspiracy. That's how he's categorized within YouTube's algorithm. So it's like, all right, so I'm allowed to comment there. Okay, because of the way he's classified. So I'm interacting with the chat and it's really weird. Suddenly people are saying hello to me in a chat that's not my own. You know what I mean?
Hold on, I have to retract that statement because I'm checking it out now and the comment's actually there. So it just I didn't see it was in the hold, but it is actually there. So he didn't.
Is it there for you? Or have you had responses?
Somebody had a comment on it, and I got an upvote and a downvote, by the way, too.
So somebody did respond, so it is visible and can be responded to.
I'm presenting it right now.
Oh, right, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, if you're getting responses to it, then it's visible.
Right, so yeah, my apologies. Apparently there is no censorship of flat earthers.
Not in my experience. Speak for yourself.
On this specific website with me.
With you and you specifically on that specific website. Arwin is not censored. Let's get that clear.
Woo!
Hey!
Thank you. Thank you for not censoring me. I really appreciate it, Mike Adams and crew.
Yes,
Thank you.
Indeed.
All right.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Have to think about that one.
Well, as far as I know, the heat comes from above, which radiates off the ground. It doesn't come from the ground itself. So, no.
In the future, they will perfect P waves and S waves to the degree that they will be able to show you that there is a presupposed molten iron core down there. So they believe. Or they will simply disprove the entire assertion permanently by their own data. Maybe they already have the technology, they just don't want to use it. Like that. Huh?
They can't drill further than 12k. What chance have they got of getting these inaccurate P waves and S waves to work when that particular dig didn't match what they predicted they'd dig through? So, no.
Right. I can respond to that, though. It's not really scientific evidence, but look, that was a long time ago, decades, right? When they did that. But maybe they can redo it. Maybe they have redone it. Maybe to do it in giant underground complexes in the United States.
Wow.
And they've actually... Finish. Come on, let me finish. And they're actually just doing it again, and this time it does kind of match. Doesn't mean that they can actually go all the way down, but maybe they have somewhat perfected that technique slightly.
I was going to ask, why don't they do it somewhere else?
I have to say, sorry, Owen, then you haven't been watching NASA. Remember, the worst technology they had more success than with the technology we have today. So obviously they'd be getting worse with the technology.
You're thinking of rockets.
No, that's just the public technology.
No. That's wrong. You're thinking of rockets in operation in a fake place. The operation of rockets in a fake medium called the sky vacuum, otherwise known as outer space, has got more difficult as time goes on, completely bucking the trend of technology getting better as time progresses. But nevertheless, they're only operating in a fake place. So it's like saying, well, over time, the Turkish delight has got worse in Narnia. Over time. Typically, the trend is that the Turkish delights get better as the machines get better. But in Narnia, it doesn't work that way. So let's all concern ourselves with how good the Turkish delights are in Narnia. No, we don't need to concern ourselves with the lack of technology to visit the fake place they claim they're going. That's irrelevant. But it's not the dig.
I have a comment. Like when Don Pettit says about the moon landing, like, oh, they don't have the technology anymore. It's too difficult to put it back. What he's actually saying is, yeah, I know that happened, we don't know how we were able to get away with it in the first place, and we're just too afraid to try it again.
Yeah, that sounds more like it. We don't know how we got away with blagging that we had things going to this sky vacuum we claim is up there, but now it's just that much more difficult to lie about it convincingly. Shout out to Al Junkie, says, just need the toilet. Lots of P waves. Is that what he said? Let's just get that on the other screen. Sorry, so I'm reading it off the projector. Maybe that is actually what he said. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, though, Al Junkie. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay.
Well, according to Jazza, we have not proven that the sky is fake.
Oh, I get a joke. He says, just went to the toilet. Lots of P waves. Thumbs up. Very good. Toilet humour. Don't tell me what the S waves are. I'm not interested.
NASA's full of it, though.
Full of S waves.
Oh, full of toilet humor.
Indeed.
Shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
No need. It was suggested. It was implied. Okay, thank you. Moving on.
Yeah, party humor!
Yeah, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container?
Gas pressure, that reminds me of, sorry.
According to somebody on Discord today, you can. He described an experiment that's not an experiment, in where you have a vacuum chamber and something with plasma, and the plasma keeps the gas molecules from expanding.
So in answer to the question of how you can have gas pressure without a container, they're saying here's gas pressure without a container in a container.
Correct.
Right.
I invited him to come on the show.
That
and
was
explain
legit
it.
the first thing he said, too. I was listening to that.
Yeah, the plasma gas. Remember that? The plasma gas. The plasma is not
Hopefully
a
he comes
gas.
on the show.
Any demonstrations or evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Well, plasma gas, maybe.
Sorry, can you show me plasma gas pressure without a container?
Well, this guy thought he could, overlooking that plasma is not really a gas, though. So it's kind of a red herring, actually.
Yeah, but by the same token, I'd be more concerned about the container it took place in.
This is
Yeah,
just the old story of it being kept together with magnets again in a lesser pressure chamber. So,
Correct.
yeah.
So it's in a container, then, is the main point.
Correct.
Yeah.
The reason I highlight that is because the question itself specifically states, how can you have gas pressure without a container? And his reply is to say, what we do is we take a container. They're idiots. They're like really stupid.
Well, Jazz is no better. It
It's
tells
like-
you to go
it's-
to a
it's like
plane.
Go on, Flatside.
It's like they don't even want to try use logic.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Wasn't that answered in the first question?
Technically, yeah. Black
Yeah,
Swan.
I've said that before, Neil.
It's going to be difficult, though, because you got to go with geometric considerations to even start anywhere with it, at this point.
Like a defensive shield, so if you don't mention the R value as a question, it might fall into the wayside and just start getting reasserted. Now, don't get me wrong, that defensive shield is so effective at the moment that they're very, very quiet 90% of the time, which is fine by me. But, like I say, if you just asked any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, otherwise known as Earth curve, yeah, you're implying that they derive it by way of begging the question fallacy as a physical location with an R value, but that's just implied. So, no, I specifically want to ask the question, is there any evidence of the R value? Because the precursor to having it is destroyed, but the argument to wreck the sphere Earth assertion in the first instance is to point out that they assume the R value. Now, when we pointed out that they assume the R value, they went, well, we just know it's a sphere, and then you have to have the black swan. So the top of the layer, the top layer of the cake, if you will, is the R value, and the next layer down is actually the black swan. Now, to me, because it's such an important debunking, it's right at the top of the list. It's always going to be the first thing that's asked, because the assertion that we're on a sphere comes with Earth having curvature, and we don't have any. So that will be always the first question, and we round out with any evidence of the R value, just so at the end of the housekeeping, like about now-ish, after the answers, if there are any about R values, which there aren't probably, the person that might enter into a discussion with us is very much aware that we will just point out that you don't get to beg the question and just assume an R value with things like hemisphere and all the other layers that they have underneath that. There you go, that's my justification for still asking it, in spite it being encompassed in the first question about physical geometric sphere edge horizons, which we do not have. Shout out to Retro Bill for the super chat. Well, just before I do, any evidence of the R value?
Yeah, well, R is nothing but the mathematical wrapping around of the flat Euclidean geometry of the real situation here in this realm onto a sphere. That's what it is. That's literally what it is, and it's the only thing it ever was.
So Retro Bill took his chances, and he did it, didn't he? He said, just went to the toilet, lots of S-waves. Open brackets, sorry guys. No, it's fair enough, you paid $5 to do it. So you can have your moment with your toilet humour.
You made a slippery mess of it.
Yeah.
It makes geology sound like you're a toilet cleaner or something.
Yeah, it sounds like a rim block or a disinfectant or something.
Speaking of his super chat, if Coriolis was real, we wouldn't be able to pee in the toilet.
No, I don't want to get into this argument about whether or not it's in the inertial or non-inertial reference frame, thank you. But I appreciate the sentiment. Could be argued either way. Has a stream of water coming out of a hose left the non-inertial spinning reference frame? I would say yes. It's no longer attached once it comes out of the hose, like a bullet's no longer attached. Therefore, you should see deflection, and that's your point. The water should deflect. As soon as it comes out of the hose, it's no longer attached. Correct? I think that's your point. Better to be made with a hose.
Yes.
Or you could say it was being made with a hose. Another shout out to Al Junkie. It says FED and QE have swanilated the globe. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much for the super chat, Al Junkie. Welcome back, Paul. Check.
Hello. Sorry, I jumped off earlier when you was asking me a question. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's okay. Especially as I can't even remember what the question was.
If anybody was on a PC.
Oh, it was about I just showed it for the audience only. It was only so you could share it with the guys in the hangout. They can see it on the pre-show. Members will get to see it before they do. Privileged.
Let's talk about, and keeping on the same subject, clouds above us that move in different directions that we've all seen.
Still missing a housekeeping question.
Which one would that be, Neil?
Any viable evidence?
Any viable evidence?
For what?
Yeah.
For what?
Very useful. Thanks, Neil.
You mean viable hypothesis or scientific evidence?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I did do
Viable.
For the whole works, astronomy, astrology, and all that.
Yeah,
we did.
that thing.
Yeah, we did that one.
I drop them in subtly. It flows, Neil. It flows. Got to pay attention.
Well, I must have dozed off for a second.
Well, thank you very much.
Shots fired.
So back to the clouds above us that go in 2, 3, even 4 directions at times that we've all seen. Is Earth turning?
No. But however, if we were, we would see them deflect at 15 degrees an hour. That would be 1,000 miles an hour as we turned underneath the clouds. If we had Coriolis deflection, that would be the effect at the equator. They'd drift away 15 degrees an hour, 1,000 miles an hour. That's what you'd see. We don't. They've got all directions, right?
So what do we see? We see them go in all directions, which means we are stationary.
Yeah, we're not turning underneath as a second non-inertial spinning reference frame, turning at 15 degrees an hour for us to see the clouds flying away from us 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. That doesn't happen.
Jazz Calendar came back with his his most famous argument to date that chemtrails somehow prove we live on a globe.
Yeah, that was hysterical.
Remember that?
No, I don't. That's not familiar to me, and it sounds absurd.
No. Yeah, he's come here like 2-3 years ago to argue that somehow or another chemtrails proves that we live on a globe, because he can see them appear to come up from one horizon and go down to the other.
Oh my god!
Oh,
this
right.
has got to be.
Yeah.
Perspective. That
I mean, this
Remember
has got
that?
to.
Yeah. He's back with that this morning.
It's got to be back long before we did endless presentations to people like Life is Short, who's one of my patrons. But his show, 3-parter, is published on the channel where we go through perspective in excruciatingly clear detail. So it's not that it's not concise, despite it being maybe 3-4 hours long across those 3 separate shows. So clearly he made that argument before we went through what perspective was, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about like the early 200s, 300s. So yeah, this was a while ago. Even 100s when I first got here. So yeah.
Okay, a bullshit trench level baseless assertion. Well, chemtrails prove we're spinning, or whatever.
It sounds like him too.
My apologies to any Aussies out there. That was actually an attempt at an impression of a particular individual, as opposed to just a bad Australian accent.
Yeah, because that one's usually inebriated. So
Yeah.
that made sense.
Well, that might not help the Aussies narrow it down. I'm only joking, Aussies.
So when someone comes back with the same argument years later, are they not listening to anything that's said to them?
Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, yes, they are. What do you think that happen? What do you think happens though? It goes in and does not compute. Well, in a computer, that would cause it to crash, right? What do you think happens to a person when that happens?
It's like playing a computer game. They play the game, then it's not fun anymore. They got the counter arguments, they got a hint of it, then they drop it, forget about it, and then later it's like, oh, pick up that old game again. That's kind of what it kind of was to me back in the day. Multiple occasions, it's just an old flame. You forget about it, and it's like, oh wow, that was awesome. Yeah, space, this and that, and then you kind of forgot all that stuff you were confronted with through science and physics and all that. You kind of forget about it, and you just look at the nice images again, and then you go through it again and again and again.
You can't.
But then it gets boring.
You can't forget it though. That's my point, right? Once you've got the information, as much as you might want to have not taken the red pill, in metaphorical terms, it's already been digested, right?
No.
Once you've peeked behind the curtain,
you can literally swallow that stuff and just let it pass it through your system without having it affected you. That's how.
You think it doesn't affect them?
With us, they have a defense. They have immunization against flat Earth. They can literally hear us, repeat us, and not understand a single word of what we're saying, but mechanically remember it in order to use it.
No, man.
See?
Nah.
That's what we do. Yes.
Well, okay. I beg to differ on what I perceive on the show. So I hear those moments, those little tiny cracks in their voice when they're at that point, that very particular moment where I know they're processing the information and processing the consequences of conceding. I hear that. Now maybe I'm just imagining it. Maybe those 2-second pauses followed by an obfuscation. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, you're not wrong. They do get pressured, and when they get pressured, they get confronted, and it's unpleasant, of course.
That's what I was going for. Got there in the end.
Standard response, they do this.
That's where I was driving to. So yeah, we got there in the end. So pressure or To put it another way, cognitive pain.
That's the form it can take, indeed. Although usually it already leads people to escapism way before that. Because, yeah, you can literally hang up in a conversation like this and walk away and forget about it. And you might be surprised how many times that happens in physical real life.
Yeah.
Well, on the internet, people really latch on and never let go and just try to troll the shit out of you.
Yeah, well, because they're engaged in... A lot of the people who face us are kind of sad beta cucks that have no life, dweeby people, and they can involve themselves in the fantasy. So imagine the dude that's playing Dungeons and Dragons. Not that I'm knocking Dungeons and Dragons player, but, you know, if they're a kid...
You better not.
16, 17 years
I was
old, they're,
gonna
playing, they're well involved in the fantasy, but then their mom comes in and says, "You didn't really get downstairs." It kind of ruins the moment, doesn't it? Right? It takes you out of the fantasy. Well, the problem with the globe model is the entirety of the model is a suspension of disbelief. Now, when you're suspending disbelief, when you've got the idea that this black bit's a sky vacuum and you're standing on a sphere, something can very easily come along to shatter that. That's why it needs continual reinforcement, because it's so easy to shatter the suspension of disbelief, whether or not you're aware that you're doing it or not. Now, when we're shoving it in their face, this is how you're suspending disbelief. This is a model. This is a reification fallacy. This is how it doesn't work. This is how reality works. That's going to shatter the suspension of disbelief. So suddenly, what do you get when that happens? Well, you get disbelief. Suddenly, you're in that position where you don't believe the thing that you thought was real about the thing you're watching. Now, the only reason I know how to describe this is because it's a performing arts term. So if you've got somebody who is in that state, they are called alienated. In other words, they're no longer engaged with the performance they're watching. And that's all the globe is. A performance. Stage show. And in order for it to work, you, the participant audience member, has to suspend disbelief. Now, if you are unaware, because it's now subconscious, because you've had it from a child, that you just are in a space vacuum on a sphere, then you are suspending disbelief at a subconscious level when you engage with anything spherical. That being a sphere-shaped Earth. Now, you may not be aware of that, but when it's pointed out, as it is here, that break stops them being capable of suspending disbelief, if only for a moment. Now, that's not going to go away. You can't unsee once you've peeked behind the curtain.
Right. The difference is, though, with a stage show, with a performance, you know you're watching it. When you're watching a movie, you know you're watching a movie.
No,
However,
that's not true.
With this, it's all secret. They don't know it's not real.
It's not
and
true.
That makes it,
Let me give you an example.
Performance, a spell.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, it's a spell. That's my point. No, you're wrong. So the example I gave, and I'm going to stick with it, is great because it's Superman. Most people have seen Superman, and he flies up and you see the globe. There's 2 layers of suspension of disbelief in that shot. You're suspending disbelief that a man can fly around a sphere. Now, you will recognise the first layer of suspension of disbelief in the fact that men can't fly. Oh, well, what about the people in the ISS? Oh, we'll come back to that layer. My point is that you suspend disbelief that Superman can fly out into the sky vacuum, and you forget that the sky vacuum has never been experienced by you. It's part of a philosophy. It's not real in physical terms. You've never seen the Earth as a sphere. All of those things are also suspensions. They're just not at a conscious level.
Absolutely. 2 layers. Yeah, you talked about that before. It's very good to keep that in mind. Because you know some things are fake because you're being told they're fake. Other things, you might not realize they're fake because everybody thinks it's real. There you go.
Not only the lack of disbelief, but you also, for their model to work, they also need trust. So we got a lot of people that'll come in, especially to like 24/7 Discord, and they'll say, well, yeah, I trust the scientists. I trust my parents. I trust, the people I see on television, right? Even their own side, when they come out with an article named How to Debate a Flat Earther, they go through all this nonsense about their evidence, and then at the end of the article they tell you, well, it's not really about evidence and arguments, it's about a lack of trust. This is why the flat earthers don't believe that it's a globe, because they lack trust. And that's how you should approach them. You should try to build that trust. Well, if they had actual evidence, proof of this nonsense, we wouldn't need trust. We would just be validated. But their entire model exists on that trust that is built from when you have a little solar system mobile over your crib. And then you turn on your cartoons, and you got your globe on the cartoons, and then you got a globe in your classroom. And your parents are telling you, oh, yeah, it's a globe. And everybody tells you it's a globe all your life. Well, that's how you build that trust. So I understand sometimes when it's hard for people to reach a point when they're like, oh, these flat earthers, they're saying something, but it's going against everything that I've built in my life, all the things that I've trusted. And that hurts, and that causes pain. I have people who tell me I have a headache talking to you sometimes. I'm like, I know. I understand. I'm sorry, but I'm not really sorry.
You know what other group of people experience the exact same... Do you know what other group of people would experience the exact same emotional response and pain, as you put it, when they're having something pulled apart? The other group of people that would parallel that perfectly would be ex-cult members. So it's put to them that their way of life that they've been isolated into and only experienced, well, everybody who's on the globe is in exactly the same boat as somebody who's in a cult, constantly subjected to an idea of the philosophy that the cult adheres to. And what is it these people in these, you need to convince them with trust? Look up how people get people into cults. Yeah? That's how they do it. Not with justified, reasonable... No. Get their trust. That's what they do. So, if you didn't know it already, you're in a cult. That's what the globe is. It's a cult based on a philosophy. Now, to snap you out of this, just so it makes a bit more sense, the subcategories of the heliocentric cult, like Scientology, based in the exact same paradigm, it's only one step removed from heliocentrism, but it's in exactly the same family. Now, the people on the heliocentric model look at Scientologists like they're kooky. No, they've got the exact same model as you. Just another cult. Just another subset of your cult, with your spinning ball in a vacuum, in violation of natural law. Not nature, not real. Just how you're brainwashed by whoever who is ever in charge of you. Most of you slave to your television sets. Now, I may be saying this to people who are already converted or unconverted, as the case may be, ex-heliocentric cult members. But if you're constantly subject to the brainwashing to keep you in that paradigm, keep you suspending that disbelief, and they literally tell you, well, if you come across somebody that doesn't believe, you've got to get their trust, and you've got to get them to believe in our scientists, because that's what they call their priesthood. Incorrectly so, but that's what you've got. You've got a priesthood of scientists, in quotes. And that's what you've got. Gain people's trust.
I shared it in Ballbusters if you want to put it on your screen.
In Ballbusters?
Or Masturbate. I think it should be in both of them.
What is it? Arguing from evidence. Is that what you want?
Yeah, this is from that article, How to Debate a Flat Earther. That space.com came out with.
Yeah, I've got it on screen. If you want to read out the bits you've got underlined, I can tell your handwriting.
Right, so part I wanted to point out, basically, however, and this is the author of the article, however, I don't think this discussion is really about actual evidence or the scientific process. People who believe that the Earth is flat aren't coming to that conclusion from the same types of observations. They instead believe that we are being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, want you to believe that the Earth is round despite its flatness. So the question isn't why do people believe in a flat Earth, but rather why do people believe in a conspiracy? And the answer is the same reason it always is, a lack of trust. So there you go. They're telling you right there, well, these flat earthers apparently lack the trust.
Do you know there's you know what a synonym for trust is? You know what a synonym for it is?
Go on, synonyms for trust. What are they?
Like
Faith. Yeah, of course. Belief, faith.
Yep. So that's
Yeah.
basically what they're telling you. They're telling you guys, or they're telling the people that follow their model. Well, the people that are against you, who believe in the flat Earth, they don't have the same faith that you do. They don't believe. They don't trust us. So try to build with them. Try to rebuild that trust. As opposed to, like in the first paragraph, this is not about evidence and arguments
I was
or
just
the
going to ask, what
scientific
about the
process.
evidence?
Nah, man, they did that in the first paragraph. They're like, nah, don't worry about that. Even though earlier in the article they started with, all the evidence of the globe, it starts with the horizon, which I found adorable. So, yeah. And by the end of the article, they're telling you, nah, don't worry about the evidence or arguments. Just try to build trust. Because, like I said before, that's the only way the globe exists.
So they want to build trust without evidence of what they say is reality. How does that work?
It works. I've had people tell me straight up, I don't need to prove the globe to myself. Thousands of people have done it before me, people that are smarter than me, and I have no interest in proving it to myself or for myself. There's no reason for me to do that. Thousands of people before me have done it. I trust them.
Yeah, the cult leader said the Kool-Aid makes us stronger, and thousands of people have drunk the Kool-Aid. I believe the thousands of people who drank the Kool-Aid because they were told it was correct by the scientists who made the Kool-Aid.
That's it.
They also are justifying, as a general populace, the notion that it's okay to beg the question. I already know it's a sphere, so even if that particular person with that mentality ever did enter into debate, they would automatically start their debating journey by having the assumption they're on a sphere. And go, well, if the Earth's a sphere, we'll see star rotation in the southern hemisphere. We do, so therefore the Earth's a sphere. And have it be pointed out as
that change when they're presented with that? When we turn around and say, no, here's the evidence we have that we're not in a sphere. Now, somewhere, something's got to give.
Well, you point out that they're begging the question. That's why, again, when I keep the R-value question in the housekeeping questions, is for that reason. When that guy comes along and affirms the consequent with his begging the question fallacy because he already thinks he knows he's on a sphere, because half the world has told him they're all drinking the Kool-Aid, well, then you have to point out, well, no, it's not a justifiable proof to assume the thing you're trying to prove. You're just assuming it. Hemisphere, assuming that you've got antipodal travel when you move to this location, that's assuming you're on a sphere to begin with to make your example. So looking up at the stars from the north or south, who cares? Unless you assume you've travelled antipodal, as you do in your affirming the consequent, if the Earth's a sphere, I'll travel to the southern hemisphere. Well, what if the Earth's a sphere, I'm travelling on a sphere? That's what their statement implies. Begging the question, basically. Well, they don't know they're doing it, but they've been trained to beg the question.
Yeah, but when this is what I'm saying, I'll personalize it. Like when it was brought to my attention the way you just explained it, I got it. And I said, oh, okay. So, like, I don't understand how people are not getting it.
Because of the TV, because of the billboards, because of the constant bombardment of the rhetoric as the standardised rhetoric. It's taught in schools, it's put on billboards, it's used in advertising, it's the common vernacular. Even our language, when we talk about the air we breathe, we use words like atmosphere without even realising it. So the magic trick is part of the language and will self-reinforce until you snap someone out of that. Until you point out, no, you're suspending disbelief here. You've never seen the Earth as a sphere from a place that violates natural law. Outer space is fake. We'd have no gas to breathe. They're claiming to have pictures that aren't real. They can't have had them from a fake place. And if it was spherical, you'd see it curving from the ground as a physical geometric horizon. In other words, you explain it to them, normally taking months on end, with them at the end reasserting, rinse and repeating because they can't stand the cognitive pain of losing their paradigm or losing their cult. You know, within the cult, they're telling them, look, there's going to be people wandering around here telling you that the cult masters / priests are lying. And, you know, you just need to remember everyone knows we're on a sphere. Just remember that. They go, okay. We all know, do we? We already know. I don't have to think about it.
This happened to me when I was in school as a young kid, also the chocolate. We've heard this between his story and mine are very similar. I told the teacher, but I don't observe what you're teaching. There's no way it is what you're saying. And I just dismissed it. But there was no flat earth show. There was nowhere to go. It was like, forget it. This is nonsense. And so at times you're in a position where you know you're not observing what they're saying reality is. What are you going to do then when it doesn't go with your observation, your logic, what you know to be true? And this is what the problem with the ballers are, is that they also were there at one time, but they somehow seem comfortable to just stay there.
You know, I just realized something when you said that, Nathan. It's true. We've never seen the Earth as what they told us it is. I've never seen it other than a picture. That just hit me.
I take no credit for that, right? That's Math Powerland. So he was the first to declare that. So you, meaning the public, have never seen the Earth from space. Now that argument has expanded out into you can't have space. Space is fake. You can't get the pictures because you can't visit the place. But it was Math Powerland who was the first to point out you've never seen Earth from that vantage point.
And we never will.
No, because it's not real.
Except for that astronaut the other day. He had to see it.
See what? They're the only people you can actually say are outright liars. You know, you could convince yourself and justify it and say they've been hypnotized. They're in a really convincing simulator. No, they're not. They're on bloody high wire. They've been strapped into those pieces of equipment. They know they're lying.
Well, the video showed you him land, right? And then it showed you people coming and taking him out of the capsule and getting all the equipment off for him. And he was smiling and happy to be back on Earth.
Yeah, and then he went round the planet backwards and the dam repaired itself and she was there at the end in his arms all happy. Yeah.
I actually made it. I actually made a new quote. I posted it in Master B. Yes, it is my quote because the Globers think I'm misrepresenting myself somehow.
I've just got a message from you. Did you want me to read it out or something? Quote, right? Keith Reynolds?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, this is your quote from you. Well, do you want to actually say it then?
Okay, I can. It takes a person of intellect to propose that his view is wrong, but it takes a fool to conjure the fantasy of make-believe over reality.
That's Flatsoid, aka Keith Reynolds.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, good statement. Caused a moment of reflection. Did you want me to present this chocolate I've just had come through?
Yeah, if you want. I was gonna, while it's a little quiet here, I was gonna go through it real quick to point out. I like pointing out irony. So
objects like mountains. Is that where I'm starting?
Damn, which one did I send you? Hold up. Well, I wanted to start from the one. Oh, damn, I'm sorry. I'm all confused. Hold on.
Okay.
Which one did I send you? Did I send you? Oh, I didn't send you the one I wanted to. I'm sorry. Give me a second.
That's okay. I like shows where we discuss the cognitive dissonance of our opponents, because that is something we do have here when they come or discuss the matter with us in spades. We get to see that raw It appeals to my evil side. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, you're such a sadist sometimes.
Well, you know, they are bastards to us. So it appeals to me from the perspective that for 5 straight years, or ever since I declared to the world that I am a flat earther, I've suffered ridicule as a result for being a realist, for not accepting the cult's models, for not accepting their pseudoscience. And you think, I've suffered ridicule for that? They're in a bloody cult. So when it's time to dish out a dose of their own medicine, I take that opportunity. I think I've said it before. The audience cheers for it.
I know. I have the same thing. It's just that I would prefer tactically for myself and my own objectives to avoid that level of tenacious glober on average, and just have a conversation with the globers that are a little bit more decent, so you can actually have a creative conversation. But yeah, the debates is what it is, and hey, these baller lunatics are out there, and you're kind of the only one that's really dealing with them. So
Right, so
I put it up. I put it up, Nathan.
okay. Yeah, go ahead. Looking around, right?
So, yeah. So that's the beginning of that article, right? So I'll read it out. To put it bluntly, we know more about the curvature of the Earth than almost any other topic in the realm of physical science. There are so many experiments, observations, and demonstrations that have time and time again revealed the curve of the Earth. And it all starts with the horizon. So we all know where that has gone, right?
Well, let's detail it. Let's labour it, though. So what's the problem with stating, as the opener to their argument, that the physical science, underlined by chocolate, starts with the horizon? Is the horizon physical?
well, it starts with the reification of the horizon.
I see. So it starts with turning a non-physical location that moves with the weather into a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. So it starts with the assumption that the horizon's a physical edge for boats to go over. I see. That's not science. A non-physical horizon being reified into a position that can block boats, even though we're told by them isn't physical science, as declared in this statement. But carry on, chocolate. Or is that it?
That's it for this one. So go to the other one that's got the little happy face in the middle of it. Little smiley
It's up.
face.
It's up. Yeah.
So this was somebody else's actually thing. So Earth's atmosphere is capable of playing funny tricks on our eyes, with different layers of air bending light into interesting directions. This phenomenon, a side effect of Earth's curvature, isn't a surefire guarantee of our planet's curve, but it's a start. But even if you can't look to the horizon for evidence, you can look up. So they start the article with it all starts at the horizon, and then halfway in the article they tell you how the atmosphere plays funny tricks, and it's not a surefire guarantee of our planet's curve, but it's a start. It's a good start, right? And if you can't look up, look at that, look up. And then at the end of the article, like we read before, they tell you how, it's not actually about the evidence and arguments, it's about trust. What a funny roller coaster this article was.
That's really bizarre, because what it basically is saying is how we've been able to dissect what is really going on and how the presuppositions works, where it starts, with the stars and all that, and the horizon. Yep. They're basically using that information and then handing it out as an instruction book.
No.
This is how you do it.
No, that's the standard rhetoric. No. All we've done is expose the standard rhetoric. That's why this show will have longevity. What we've done is exposed how, in their vernacular, they're talking about something having physical evidence. But then when you get to Andrew Thomas Young describing a line of sight to something which you cannot see, you have a physical horizon being reified from maths. Well, the fact that we've exposed that they tell people to, in this terminology, they're not saying reify the horizon into a physical location for boats to go over, and we'll call it Earth curve. They're not saying that. But they're telling you that it starts with the horizon. Well, their model does. We've just exposed why that isn't the case, how it's not physical. And they've had to respond by saying, yeah, it's not physical. It's like, so this isn't physical science. Well, we already exposed that. So, you know, the fact that we're right on the money is only because we're exposing the actual rhetoric for how it's wrong. But it doesn't mean that when they come along and say, well, our rhetoric is to use the horizon as a physical sphere edge. It's like, yeah, that's why it's one of the housekeeping questions. Any evidence of physical science for a non-physical horizon?
I wasn't implying that we literally caused that. It's just that the correlations are astounding. And the way it's put down, yes, you're correct. They don't straight out say it, but the way it's described and how Chocolate read it, it does seem like a covert instruction manual, basically explaining this is how it works.
It is. It is.
That's normal. But
it is, and exactly. It is. You're right, and that's normal. And we're exposing how that works. Again, it's like with Andrew Thomas Young, the same guy who wrote this article. You couldn't necessarily hold him to task on being in any way nefarious. He probably thinks his article's very good, and he's done a very good job of explaining it. And because he's part of the cult, he's like, yeah, you need to get him to trust you. Well, we explain the line of sight to something we can't see with our physical science for it, which we haven't got. You know, it's all doublespeak.
Yeah, but I think they're putting work in
just for clarification, Andrew Thomas,
because of a lack of trust.
Andrew Thomas Young didn't write this particular article.
No, I know.
This is an article from. Oh, okay.
I'm comparing. I'm just comparing and contrasting Andrew Thomas Young,
Gotcha.
because when I say it's not necessarily nefarious, because he's just towing the line of heliocentric rhetoric in terms of reifying a physical edge. On screen now, National Geographic telling you that the horizon's in front of this flag, not realising it's behind it, but they're still talking about the horizon, aren't they? And how it's a blockage for this flag. Not realising it's actually a black swan proof that we don't have a geometric physical sphere edge for a horizon. So it all starts at the horizon. That's just their rhetoric. So the parallels aren't parallels. We're directly addressing their rhetoric. So hearing them parrot it off is like, yeah, that's how the trick works, and we're exposing it here.
I wasn't.
Arwin, you are half right, Arwin.
He's
this is
100%
an instructional article, Arwin, because it is called "How to Debate a Flat Earther." So it's literally an instruction. It is literally an instructional article telling them how to handle us.
But it's written in such a natural way. It's like the person that basically edited doesn't have to be the original writer of the thing, but it's just been put together so smoothly that it's kind of like an instruction manual without telling you it is in a direct sense. Even though the title, Debate a Flat Earther, it's more about how do we uphold the globe religion without telling you it's a religion, and quickly making you presuppose certain things without realizing it as part of the conditioning, all that. And it isn't the automated, not implying anything nefarious. It is like automated. You copy it from your programmers. I did that.
The point is, at the end of the day, if you really have evidence, you don't need to have rubbish like this printed.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. What's this lack of trust? I don't believe in flat Earth because of lack of trust in society. Come on.
Okay, just one sec, just to back up Arwin's point. So when they're programming you without necessarily intentionally doing it or knowing that they're doing it, but it's still part of a magic trick, it's this sentence here. This phenomenon is a side effect of Earth's curvature. Now, they're talking about the refraction of light and saying that it's a side effect of R. That's what they're actually saying. What that means is that it's 7/6R that moves the atmospheric conditions, because we assume 7/6 of a radius, we assume. That's what this means. But the sentence doesn't say, we're going to beg the question, use R and 7/6 of it, and call that refraction, terrestrial refraction. That's not stated. It said the phenomenon, which it isn't, it's a mathematical 7/6R, but there's the lie. This phenomenon, making it sound like it's something occurring in nature. No, it isn't. 7/6R does not occur in nature. And light and its path has absolutely no consequence to the ground beneath it. None. But it's literally stating that it's a side effect of the curved ground beneath it. No, it isn't. Absolutely not how light behaves. It's just stating we're going to use 7/6R and assume that light bends around at the rate of R or a derivative thereof. So he's going to say this phenomena is a side effect of Earth's curvature. No, it isn't. You're just going to use terrestrial fraction, 7/6R.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just one part.
I mean, he was clearly a Freemason. She, he, whoever.
Yeah, as I said, there has definitely been a very careful editor who basically decided on how to present the whole thing, how it will be read. It's a careful editor to how it was all said.
Yeah, and what he's done is reassured his audience.
That lack of trusting. I don't understand that. Lack of trust?
Yeah, you just don't trust in the spell, man. Just trust the Earth is a globe. Everybody trusts that the Earth is a globe, and it always worked out because look at the calculations. Come on.
No, but it has nothing to do with trust. I mean, look at the evidence that's brought to you. I've never seen the Earth as a ball ever, other than a picture. That's not a lack of trust.
Well,
that's a lack
if you're
of
a liar,
evidence.
if you're a liar, you need people to trust you. So that's what they need.
See, but what you just said, Neil, is exactly what the article is trying to take the reader out of that mind state of, well, those guys, those weird flat earthers, they don't need evidence. They're going to ignore the evidence we provide because they don't trust us. So that's why you need to build trust with them. When we as flat earthers are like, yeah, we don't need trust. If your shit was validated, it would just be validated. We wouldn't need to trust you, right? But that's how the whole thing works, man.
Exactly. With that, I'm going to say if you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you in the next video.